we're about to go and examine the different kinds of formal structures that business can take. We're going to focus on three of the major ones. There's a couple out there that are actually existence, and you'll see different variations of them, but for the most part, there's be three different kinds. The number one, by far, of business ownership is called sole proprietorship. You're in charge. You have your own business. Yes, yes, yes. All the wonders and joy of total freedom to succeed or fail. Okay. So anyway, so here's an example. Peter Cancro, Jersey Mike Subs. I have to tell you, if you look on the franchise listings, this one makes an awful lot of money. It really brings in the most revenue per square foot, which is a huge amount of any type of fast food franchise that's out there. It makes a large amount of profit. You can open up a Jersey Mike sub for really a minimal amount of money in a small space. Let's say, for instance, that you're renting a 1,200 square foot space. You're renting here in Orange County because we're outrageously expensive as it is $35 a square foot. Plus, you have to pay what's called triple net. I would write this down if I were you and wanted to be an entrepreneur. You talk about leases. A commercial lease is normally for retail space is 10 years with 2 5-year options. So in theory, it's a 20-year lease. You normally negotiate the first 10 years as to how much is going to be an annual increase. It might be based upon inflation, the CPI, whatever it might be. So you have that. And then the next 2 5 years tend to be negotiable. That's a pretty standard rate. You also will have a franchise fee, and but also on the space itself, you might have called triple net. By triple net, this is not in your textbook. This is for you that are serious about starting the business. Triple net is really the overall taxation for the entire shopping center and the landscape maintenance and the taxes. Triple nets, three things, and those are not owned by the actual owner of the shopping center. Those are costs in the event of doing business for the entire shopping strip that you'll be located in. So normally you're going to be paying a rent, and that depends on the square foot basis. Sometimes you'll see it calculated on an annual basis, and sometimes on a month-to-month basis. Most places in California tend to calculate it on an annual basis, but every once in a while I have an outlier. Other parts of the country, you'll see that they're calculated all the time on a monthly basis. It can drive you crazy unless you're used to actually the jargon that's out there. So you have to do your rent, how much it's going to cost you, and also then your triple net on top of that. Triple net, the older the plaza, the lower the triple net because your taxes will be lower. But if it's a brand new, spanking new, fabulous shopping center, your taxes may be higher because this is California, and taxes make up a big chunk of triple net. So that being said, Jersey Mike's, fabulous place to own because of the fact you can make an awful lot of money. Your biggest problem is making certain you have labor nonstop. He ended up at the right old age of 14 years old, started working at Jersey Mike's Sub, and by the time it was done, he sometime as a teenager, he bought the shop for $125,000. Almost for sure, nobody sat down and said, "Yo, because you're really cool, Peter, we're going to give you this fabulous deal for $125,000." Somebody probably had to co-sign it. So that being said, somehow he scraped together about $500,000 in today's money, and it's really expanded to 44 states. Actually, I think it's about 48 states right now. Really the lower 48. But that being said, it really is a huge thing. Pretty much, if you go online and take a look at the franchise fee, there's an $18,500 fee for the franchise itself. You need to think about how much you're going to pay to actually take a space. You might have to go into a space that already exists that may not be ready for a restaurant style. You may have to then install refrigerators. It just depends what it's all set up. Jersey Mike's doesn't freeze anything. They only have refrigerators. You also have to have everything stainless steel because that's pretty standard in the food industry because it really limits the amount of germs. So that being said, you have the different aspects, remodel it. You actually want to remodel it back to what we call a vanilla shell, okay, which means that it is ready to have somebody come in. It's totally empty and ready to go. You put your stuff in, you put the investment in. You need to have some liquid capital of your own, and then hopefully a bank is going to loan you money, or you'll have some other way of franchising and paying the fee for that and the fee for actually the investment. You need to have a net worth of about $300,000. An awful lot of people will have an opportunity here to actually open their own Jersey Mike's. Now, it's work. That's why we call it work. But that being said, there's an awful lot of Jersey Mike that actually have multiple different franchise locations. So you have income streams from different aspects of it. And you can also move your different employees around as needed in the process. Let's look at the three different major forms that we're going to be studying: the sole proprietorship, okay, the partnership, and the corporation. So we'll talk about them individually. So here you have the aspects of the ownership. You're going to look at the percentage of businesses. You'll see the overall sole proprietorships are 72% of all the businesses. Corporations, by the time it's done, they don't make up that big of a percentage, but what they do have is they generate about 81% of all the revenue. So by far, corporations are much, much bigger than a sole proprietorship. So some of the eases of the sole proprietorship of you being on your own is the ease of starting and ending the business. I'm going to set up shop and I'm going to call my place Herbie's. Okay, so you opened up Herbie shop and boom, you're opening business and you're selling the product. I don't feel like working anymore. I'm going to close my shop. So boom, you close it down. That's all there is to it. You get to be your own boss. You get to drive in and see Herbie's used cars every day and your name there and lights at nighttime. Like cool. And so you get that pride of ownership. By the way, there is a pride of ownership when you walk up and say, that's my business. You get to leave a legacy for people after you. You get to retain the company profits. There's no special taxes. It's what we call flow through taxation. Put that in your notes, please, because that's always a test question. So that being said, it's a flow through taxation model. So starting your own business, there's an awful lot of different things. Even Tube HD, he's out there all the time making started making toy unboxing videos on YouTube when he's a little kid. And now as a teenager, he has 6 million subscribers. Then he has a lot of viral content, has a huge following, and earns more than $1 million a year from ads and sponsorship. That's an awful lot of work, except for the fact he makes an awful lot of money in the process. Now, listen to me closely. I never, did you see the word never? Never, never, never recommend that anybody in California open up a sole proprietorship, because the issue comes down to that number one item you'll see highlighted there. It's called unlimited liability. Let's say that you do something as simplistic as you own your own business that's a beauty shop. Okay, so the beauty shop, tell me what can really go wrong. You're not going to kill anybody because of the fact you dyed their hair purple, and you're not going to sit down there and beat them to death with curlers. So the idea of somebody dying in there because of curlers or color is slim. And if they sue you, are they going to sue you because their hair is orange or purple? Probably not. They might even like the color. So that being said, but the issue comes down to, what if they come in and they have one of those little munchkins, the munchkins that are 3, 4, 5 years old, that run around and they scream and they yell and they go running out the front door, and the door pinches their fingers and breaks the fingers, their first 2 fingers of the right hand, and they scream and they sue you. Well, if they sue you, okay, they're going to, the jury decides for them, we award you $3 million because you, as a beauty professional, you should have watched that child. Well, I was doing the hair, but no, because it's California. So that being said, they make a decision that you think is totally egregious, and they award $3 million. And what happens is, if you don't have it, well, they take all your business, they liquidate all the assets of your business, and then they come after your house, your car, your firstborn child. They take all of that. They'll probably leave out the firstborn child nowadays because it makes too much noise in the headlines. But that being said, they'll sit down and take all your personal assets. That's called unlimited liability. A sole proprietorship, yes, it's nice, it has flow through income, but it also has flow through liability, because the sole proprietorship is you. That being said, so we'll talk about options to that in just a moment. And you also have limited financial resources, management difficulties. You have a huge amount of time, especially if you're the only one working with it. The fringe benefits are only what you get to buy. You can only grow with as much capital as you have, and the lifespan is dependent upon the owner. Those are the disadvantages, but the number one is that giant monster called unlimited liability. That if you do own that, you can also go ahead and file a thing called doing business as, and that's called the DBA. We call it a DBA all the time. Another term is a fictitious business name, which is like, instead of calling it Herbie's, okay, you may want to call it Artful Beauty. Okay, so Artful Beauty could be your own store, and you file it in the Orange County Clerk's office and you file a DBA or a fictitious business name. It's going to cost you less than $75 to own the right to that name for 5 years. That being said, when you file that, you have some type of advertising requirement. Your fee is $25 to $35. You have to have some advertising out there for a month. You'll see a couple of people will email you stuff. This is a good way of owning the name of your business if you do decide to stay a sole proprietorship. It takes money, it takes time to sit down and do that. And if you're going to sit down and own a retail of the front it, that means you have to man it. Somebody has to be there a minimum 40 hours a week, probably more like 60 hours a week. So plan on that type of time commitment. That whole thing of starting a business, it sucks up a lot of time. Most people work more than 60 hours a week for the first several, excuse me, years of the company. That being said, and after a while, you'll calm it down. One time, I was getting my hair cut by a guy who owns Day Sa Salon, and he's saying, I have to work 12 hours today. I said, well, how often do you do that? I do it twice a week. I said, well, how many days do you work? I work 2.5 days a week. Huh? He owns it. He owns it, and he works a whole 30 hours a week. Life is really rough. I have to work 30 hours a week, and he owns his own business. Well, the story, though, is he started his business when he was 17 years old. And then at 17, he worked 40, 50, 60 hours a week for about 10 years. And then everything got to be down pat. He got his place the way he wanted it. And then he could throttle back down. After a while, when you own your business, then you can relax, but you have to get the rhythm down pat. You have to go through all the different crises that can happen in the business. This work-life balancing act can be pretty tough, but at least at first for the first 3 years before you get all down pat as to what you want. So being a sole proprietorship, it's wonderful. You get to own your own business. You have a lot of pride in that, but there's serious legal issues with that business model, especially here in California. And I'll give you a picture of a different structure that is almost as simple, but the issue really comes down to is that liability. And here's a big aspect over here. A lot of sole proprietors, if you take the entrepreneurship series that we have, you'll find out that a lot of sole proprietorships and a lot of different people that are entrepreneurs, a lot of them have ADHD issues. Sometimes they focus in and they bounce, 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 which is actually pretty healthy when you're running your own business. But the reality comes down to don't ignore those micro details like the accounting. That's probably one of the biggest problems you'll have in the world of entrepreneurship. Sole proprietorship, great, easy. The vast majority of businesses are sole proprietorship, something to consider, but that liability issue is always lingering out there, and we'll look at different options for that. Take care.